Welcome back to the Founders Leadership Operating System. In this episode, we challenge one of the most common and most damaging beliefs in the startup world. The idea that the team that helped build the company can't be the team that scales it. Hence the often quoted phrase, the team that got you here won't get you there. Too often, investors and executives default to replacing people instead of fixing the real issues: strategy, structure, systems, and leadership accountability. When this myth takes hold, it destroys trust, erodes culture, and causes organizations to lose the very people who helped create the company's early success. In the Leadership Guide, we unpack where this belief comes from, why it's often wrong, and we discuss how great leaders focus instead on fixing systems before blaming people. If you've ever seen strong teams unfairly blamed or replaced in the name of scaling, share this episode and help it spread through the leadership and startup communities on LinkedIn so more founders can challenge this dangerous assumption. All right, let's get to it. As we mentioned before, there's a line of thinking in the venture capital and private equity communities that the people in a startup that help get you to X million in sales won't be the ones to get you to Y million in sales. Here are some examples. The people that got you to 25 million or 50 million in sales are not the ones that get to 100 million in sales. The people that got you to 100 million in sales are not the ones that get you to 250 million in sales or take you public. The issues, solutions, and flaws that you're about to read came not just from my own experience, but from the experience of over 24 friends and colleagues that have worked at over 200 startups over the last 30 years. This concept of who got you here is very nuanced. Parts of it are true, parts of it are categorically false. It is the implementation of this concept where things can go off the rails very quickly and cause more harm than good for both the company and the people. And I want to prevent this from happening. Okay, so what is the premise behind this idea of who got you here won't get you there? Well, here are three elements to that premise. Startups evolve through phases, and the leadership and the team need to evolve as well. 0 to 50 million is about creation, speed, scrappiness, and survival. And going from 50 million to $100 million is about repeatability, systems, discipline, and leverage. Now, the first flaw with this is that it doesn't automatically mean that people must change, but it often means roles, expectations, development, and skill demands do. Replacing the people that got you there, as if that was the natural order of things, is immature and inexperienced leadership. If the company culture and values are all about investing in our people and we are family, this is now the single biggest opportunity to put those values into practice. Because most founders intend to scale, they bring in people who've already done it before. The second flaw is that this notion assumes that systems, processes, and programs were not put in place during the climb to 50 million, which in today's SaaS world is seldom true. In fact, startups today have access to world-class systems, processes, and programs from day one that would have never been available until they reached 100 million or more in revenue. For example, here are the number of SaaS applications typically used by size and development of startups, and they are available across every conceivable function, cross-function, process, and system. If you want, you'll be able to get a SaaS application to help you. In the pre-seed round, or maybe only having 10 to 25 employees, they use about 25 to 60 applications. In Series A, about 60 to 120 applications. Series B, 120 to 200 plus apps. And in Series C, 200 to 350 apps or more. And today, there's no excuse for waiting. Modern, user-friendly SaaS platforms give early-stage companies access to proven systems that used to require far more time, capital, and headcount to implement. The tools are available much earlier in the company's lifecycle than ever before. And the only question is really whether leadership chooses to use them. Okay, let's look at some other concepts behind this line of thinking, who got you here won't get you there. One of those notions is different stages requires different skill sets. They say that early stage leaders thrive in ambiguity, where late stage leaders thrive in process, optimization, and scale. Not everyone loves or excels at both. My issues with this are as follows. First, many people can do both. It's not always either or. Second, don't you owe it to your early loyal employees who took a chance on you to invest in their development before replacing them? So develop first, not replace or move aside. Another notion is speed versus stability being a trade-off. Founding teams often bias towards speed and shortcuts, but not all do. Scaling demands risk mitigation, controls, and predictability. Those instincts can conflict, but not always. Another notion is that founder bias can block necessary change. Early leaders sometimes cling to, this is the way we've always done it, or relying on acts of heroism instead of systems. Since absolutely no one with any experience wants to say or do those things, I believe this can also be dealt with without having to rip and replace people. This is what leadership and team coaches come in to solve and sort out for the company. Another notion is that professional management often becomes necessary. As startups grow, new business programs and practices that are well understood need to be implemented. Now look at, none of these require a PhD. Implementing operating cadences, communication programs, North Star metrics, OKRs, KPIs, systems, scorecards, processes, QBRs can all usually be done by the team that got you here. This was not their first company. This is not the first department that they led. Another flaw in this logic is this assumes that leaders did not have experience at managing at scale. This also assumes that the company is not willing to hire a consultant to compress the learning curve of people in those places today. Another notion is that capital efficiency improves with experienced operators. Hence, they're very interested in business operators that understand margin expansion, forecast accuracy, operating expense discipline, and repeatable go-to-market motion. Battle-tested operators avoid expensive mistakes. This is an excellent point and a valid concern. Can the company leverage consultants to compress the learning curve before they bring in people over on top of the existing staff? Another notion is that founders are not always great people managers at scale. What worked at 12 people often fails at 120 or more. Scaling leadership requires delegation, coaching, performance management, letting go, and trusting people. Not everyone makes that leap. This is perhaps the most valid point of all. So why do so many of these founders blame their people and change them out when they fail to see that they might be the problem? Leadership coaches can help these leaders become self-aware to the point they can make a fully informed decision, either change their leadership ways or maybe be the ones that move on to a different role. Another notion is that investors optimize for probability, not loyalty. Venture capital and private equity firms are paid to reduce risk, increase certainty, and maximize ROIC. Replacing leaders is often seen as a risk management move, not a moral judgment. This too can be solved. Investors can't ask people to go all in, do whatever it takes to win, and grow the company to XYZ level, and then be okay with being moved aside or exited out of the business when it reaches some predetermined revenue level. This is enterprise-grade hypocrisy. A better way, a more modern way to scale the leadership and the team goes like this. Leaders first must behave in line with their culture and values. This is where it gets hard. Rather than get rid of the people that built the company, why not first at least try developing them? This is much harder to do and requires leadership to believe in their people, like it says on the website, truly understand where the problems are in the business, they must be plugged in and not hiding behind Slack, and maintain leadership principles and the cornerstones of the culture that everyone owns the sales number, which is what got them to this level in the first place. Reread those points again. Don't they all line up with the culture, values, and teamwork messages that leaders talk about on the all-hands calls? Accepting this who got you here premise is where companies quietly sabotage themselves, as evidenced by the examples below. 1. It can become a lazy stereotype. Great early, bad later becomes a shortcut excuse instead of a thoughtful evaluation. Plenty of people can scale given coaching, some time, and clear expectations. Remember why you hired them in the first place? Their character, ability to learn and apply those learnings, being coachable and learning machines, humility, work ethic, drive. Are those no longer important? It also undervalues institutional memory. Early team members hold customer knowledge, relationships, and needs. They understand the product DNA and why people really buy. They know the right systems, processes, and programs that work. And they are happy to update them, to change them, or do something entirely new if that is required. The early people just want to win, and that has not changed. Lose them, and you risk death by spreadsheet and Slack leadership. It can kill morale. If people believe I'll be discarded once we succeed, they'll stop killing themselves for the company, doing whatever it takes to win, taking risks on new ideas, thinking long-term, and acting like owners. That's poison, and that's the opposite of your culture and values messaging. Another notion is that external scale hires often underperform. Many big company hires were people that rode the train and did not drive the train. They often expect staff support and don't want to get their hands dirty by leading and learning from the front lines. They may move slowly and overthink or over-engineer processes. You need someone who is fluent in the learning curve mindset, willing to lead and learn from the front, and with the knowledge and experience of systems, programs, and processes that scale. Experience at a large company does not equal adaptability, speed, innovation, and all the things that you need to be nimble at a startup or a scale-up. Culture suffers first. Early employees embody the purpose, mission, passion, grit, and customer obsession. They are the heartbeat of the culture, and they make that culture and company a great place to work. Beware of how you treat them. This sends a message to the entire company. Let me give you an example of what not to do with early employees. A friend of mine told me about another company headquartered in Atlanta where they moved several people down, demoted them in title, pay, and responsibility, or out of the company. They gave them insulting offers, a reduction in pay by XYZ% or more, and were told that they didn't like it, they can take a severance. And these were the people that increased the company valuation from sub $20 million to over $200 million plus. They had been performing. There were no financial pressures to reduce cost. The company was growing and hiring. They got caught up in the who got you here won't get you there mindset. Treating them poorly or replacing them too aggressively turned the company into a soulless operator and destroyed the hard-earned positive culture they spent years creating. Another problem with this whole concept is that it confuses role fit with talent. Time for people and culture to step up. The real issue isn't whether they're capable, it's whether they're sitting in the right seat at this stage of the company. If they are, double down and support them. If not, decide quickly, can they grow into the role with clear expectations and development, or would the organization better be served by placing them where their strengths can create leverage? Talent isn't the question, fit and timing are. If there is a different, better role for them, give them that opportunity, but do not reduce their pay. This shows loyalty to the people who got you here. It will show up in employee surveys and a stronger, better culture. The difference in pay is usually a rounding error on the financial statements. This is where people and culture leaders need to step up to the C-level table and do the right thing for the people that is in their title. And by doing that, they exponentially improve the other word in their title, culture. Loyalty and trust are strategic assets. People who built the company early on care more, stay longer, and fight harder in the downturns. You can't buy that in the market. That is how and when culture is formed and later hardened as this team sees the company through ups, downs, and existential events. Scaling is learnable. Many scale skills are teachable, coachable, and transferable. Books, consultants, mentors, and board advisors can all help ensure that the current team has the knowledge to scale. Writing people off too early is a leadership failure, and it starts at the top. People are not assets to be discarded or slots on a spreadsheet to be deleted. The issue is not people. It is not who got you here won't get you there. Let's retire this antiquated way of thinking. Let's be more human in an often soulless corporation. The better strategy and diagnostic questions for leadership are as follows. Instead of asking, are these the right people? Ask, are they coachable? Are they self-aware? Are they willing to give up control? Are they in the right seat for the next stage? If yes, invest in them. If no, change the role, not the person first. Only replace people when you've exhausted development. All right, let me move on to the Founders Leadership Operating System Summary. The purpose of this series has been simple: to challenge the common leadership mistakes that quietly destroy culture, slow growth, and cause organizations to lose great people for the wrong reasons. Many startups and growth stage companies fall into a predictable pattern. When results stall, leaders often search for a quick explanation. Too frequently, that explanation becomes sales or the team. But the truth is harder and far more productive than that. Most performance failures are not people failures. Most performance failures are leadership system failures. Senior leadership owns the 3 S's: strategy, structure, and systems. Frontline leadership owns the 3 P's: programs, people, and performance. When results break down, leaders often jump straight to the people conversation. But in most organizations, the real problem lives upstream in the strategy, structure, or systems that leadership created. So before blaming sales, before blaming the team, before replacing people, leaders must look in the mirror first. Here's my call to action. If these ideas resonate with you, there are 3 ways to take the next step. Join the U 3.0 YouTube community. 2. Read the Founders Leadership Operating System Guide. 3. If you work in sales leadership or the startup ecosystem, please share episodes 4 and 5 across LinkedIn and your professional communities. The more leaders who can see this message are the more organizations we can help shift from blame to accountability. The goal is simple. Stop blaming sales, stop blaming the people. Instead, start fixing the strategy, structure, and systems that leadership created. Because great companies don't scale by replacing people, they scale by building better leadership operating systems.